This is a vlog about one of the bands that I've always listened to, basically since I was probably 16 or 17, the Smiths. And the reason why I'm doing this vlog is just to share the experiences that I've had while listening to the Smiths, why I've listened to the Smiths, looking back now at what I've realized about the points within myself that I was generating and experiencing whilst listening to the Smiths, and basically the value that I gave that specific band, and why I've always seen that band as, my most favorite band, or a band that I enjoy, over other types of music. So firstly, the reason why I always enjoyed the Smiths is because they were always seen as not everybody listened to the Smiths. So first of all, I liked the fact that they were different to other bands. The vocals were, of course, very specific. Morrissey has a very specific type of voice. If you've listened to them, you'll know what I'm talking about, and if you've listened to them, you will understand what I'm referring to when I say I liked the lyrics, because the Smiths had a tendency of singing about, you could say, the more depressing or darker things in life, and they would take on, the funnier aspects of human nature and, the way that we experience ourselves and things like that, which I quite enjoyed, because I was, growing up, let's say from the age of 16, 17, which is when I started listening to the Smiths. That was the time when I started asking a lot of questions. I started becoming quite dark and somber, and where all the other children in school, for example, my friends, were, slotting in with their pre-design, meaning where they were like looking forward to growing up and getting a job and, meeting somebody and starting a family. I was looking at this whole point, which had a lot to do with how I was growing up and my experience with my father, but I had a very estranged experience, a very detached relationship with my father and with my mother, and this resulted in me being yearning for that special experience with my parents. And this, I would say, predominantly was the reason for me choosing the type of bands that I ended up liking more than other bands. So the Smiths, for example, if you've listened to their songs and their lyrics, Morrissey liked writing music which was about the inner experience and about what people are really going through, and it's obviously not very poppy music. And I basically, you could say, any point where you say, okay, this is my favorite band, or this is my favorite movie actor, or something like that, this is where you're basically saying, look, whatever this band or person represents, I'm becoming infatuated with, because that's basically what we do when we listen to a particular movie or we follow something extensively. It's because we become slightly obsessed within that point with that person or sound or what that thing or point represents. So I was looking at the other day of what is it about the Smiths particularly that, I was resonating with, you could say. And it was definitely the point where Morrissey was singing he was expressing himself, you could say, from this emotional point, at this point of, I am misunderstood, nobody understands me. And when we decided to start doing vlogs about the music we listen to in the movies and the TV series and that kind of things that we enjoy, I looked at, okay, I'm going to take on, for a start, the specific bands that I've always liked and why. So I first of all looked at, okay, as I just said, I liked Morrissey and the Smiths because of the type of music that they made, and therefore what he represented within all of that was this, dark, misunderstood guy who, sang from an emotional point. And I decided a few days ago to watch YouTube videos about Morrissey, where they interview him and they discuss with him who he is, and I wanted to see if the experience that I had of him, if it was the same as the experience that other people have had of him, and it was exactly the same. That pre-programmed point of the emotional experience that you have listening to a particular band, that band is resonating on that point, and everybody who is relating to it and connecting to and liking it is because you are resonantly in that pattern, meaning you are in that experience and that of yourself, and that is why you like that band. Not because, if you look at it, the only reason why we like something over another thing is because of pre-programming. You have designed yourself through a long period of time from your youth, based on your pre-programming, your DNA from your parents. You come into this world. Now you are a certain pre-programmed mind consciousness system, and now you are growing up liking things and disliking other things. I mean, it works with resonances, pre-programmed, and design. It's not real. So I looked at, so it was very interesting. I listened to these interviews, and basically, if even the interviews, I specifically listened to the ones that they did with him back in the 80s and back in the 90s. The Smiths were predominantly an 80s band, and the exact thing came through. People absolutely adored Morrissey because he represented the misunderstood youth, and he wasn't a popular poppy guy, so he didn't fit into the genre of popular artists. He wasn't the Madonna genre. He didn't fit into any of that. He was his own. The Smiths kind of fall into a genre of their own, and so I was following them for that same reason, that emotional experience where you listen to the words, and it's the same like this for all music. I'm just specifically saying that my experience with myself and the people who, for example, they interviewed a lot of the fans of Morrissey, and they all said the exact same thing. It was interesting. I was like giggling within myself because it was like me speaking as they were interviewing these fans, where they were like saying, "Oh, Morrissey, listening to him, I feel so good, and he expresses what I can never say," and whatever. And then they interviewed Morrissey, and the first thing that I realized is, boy oh boy, what an ego. Absolute ego. I mean, this guy is pre-programmed within his design of, I am the unpopular, extremely popular guy, and he knew it. I mean, every single interview, I watched up to 10 interviews that they did with him. Obviously different people interviewed him, and each time he would say the same thing. They would say to him, "So Morrissey, what is it about you that your fans adore so much?" And he would say, "Well, I don't want to be special. I think the whole thing is that they know that I'm making music for the love of it, and I don't want to be special, yet I know that I am." And it was interesting, in each interview he basically ends saying that because he does his own thing, and he's not in it for the money, and he's not in it for the fame and the power and to be recognized as a pop star, he just wants to express himself, and if people listen to his music, so be it. But then somewhere during the interview he will actually admit that he knows, because of all of that, how special he really is. And I realized in that moment that was the point I was resonating with. I wanted somebody to see me as being special, where I don't have to say I'm special. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to try. I can just go about my day and express myself, and everybody will be like, "Whoa, look at what she's doing. She's special." And I was very envious of people who grew up and had it easy in this world, because I didn't experience myself growing up. I didn't find anything easy. I didn't find school easy. I didn't find interacting with people easy. I was terrified of boys. I was terrified of leaving, the school environment and having to go into the world, support myself. Everything terrified me. But I couldn't take self-responsibility within that point and become self-honest. I mean, I didn't know anything about self-honesty. I didn't know anything about supporting myself. So I wanted to be the outcast and be okay with being the outcast, but also feel good about it. Feel good about the fact that I'm a misfit of society. and I'm depressive, and I like hanging out in my room listening to the Smiths and the Cure and Susie and the Banshees, and I wanted to be recognized for the fact that I was not part of society, and I just wanted to be left alone and to like express myself in whatever way possible. And the thing here is that instead of me being okay with me, instead of us living in a world where first of all children are taught to be okay with themselves, that they're not accepting and allowing as the parents and as society, that children compete with each other. I mean, that's the first thing that needs to be removed from a child's environment, is this competitive bullshit. Because look at the situation that happened, if I look at my own experience, is that I grew up not being okay with me, and I didn't fit in with society, but I thought to myself, hey, you're supposed to find recognition within society, but I felt like the misfit, and I didn't want to fit in, so I had to feel okay. So I would listen to the bands that sang about the sentimental stuff through which I would feel okay, because at the end of the day, you don't feel okay about yourself. You are torn between the point of society which says you should become a certain person, and who you really are, which is not that. And then you kind of go into this this drawn out experience of yourself, like this depressive kid. And I just became more and more and more depressed, trying to find self-validation, which I would never find in things outside of myself. So listening to all these interviews with Morrissey, it became very evident that that was his pre-programming within this world, is that he must be the misunderstood, poetic guy who can tap into his feelings and emotions and can write about it and write beautiful songs, and he can be sarcastic about the human experience and make songs about it, and everybody just laps it up. And I then realized that he was quite blunt about how he viewed himself, and that this is kind of comes to a point where you realize that you have always accepted and allowed that which that person represents. That person thinks they're fucking great, then you think that person is fucking great. And if we stop giving these values and definitions based on absolute mind fluff, if we stop giving these values and definitions to movie stars and pop stars and bands, where we allow, as we're listening to the music, we allow thoughts to come up from our own resonant design, going, oh, that's so cool, and oh, I like what that's doing. There you can see quite clearly your own design just by listening to a song and looking at what is my reaction, what are the experiences that are coming up, what are the thoughts coming up, because this is telling me a lot about myself. So I wanted to share that realization that I had with regards to this band that I've listened to, and I'm not yet saying that I won't listen to them, or I have listened. Well, I'll stop now. I now listen to a lot of music. I have a lot of music in my music collection, and I just listen to it, and I check myself when reactions come up. But definitely, since working with this point now, I will check myself that if I'm listening to the Smiths and a reaction comes up in me of, oh, that's so cool, I stop, do self-forgiveness, because I've now realized within that point that is not real, and that's me supporting an idea of myself, an idea of him as the mind, and then I just stop that.